All right, welcome back to the podcast. Here we go, man. I am super excited. Help me welcome the head girls coach from McKinney High School in the great state of Texas. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Miss LaKeidra Stewart. LaKeidra, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for that welcome.
Well, it's true. You know, I do that with all of our guests. I think as we have track coaches on this podcast from around the country, you have to be wise and wonderful to be a track coach. Call me wrong.
You got to have a little bit going on there. You have to, a little bit going on.
Absolutely. With what coaches on every level, high school, college, professional, to deal with what you deal with and do what you do and excel at what you do, you better be wise and you better be awesome. You better be wonderful. So it is 100% heartfelt, LaKeidra. You are wise. You are wonderful. And you chose to be on this podcast. That automatically makes you wise and wonderful.
I love it.
Well, I didn't do an introduction. I'm so sorry. I am not wise and wonderful. I'm just Mike Cunningham. I am your host here on the podcast, National Sales Manager for Gill Athletics, the Connections podcast here. If this is your first time, we are here to uplift and honor track coaches from literally around the world and at all levels. We've had coaches on the summer circuit, AAU, USATF, youth club level, high school, collegiate, professional, international. And today I'm super excited because first of all, she was a stud athlete and has now turned into a stud coach, but she's also from the great state of Texas. So we're going to have some uniquenesses here on how she coaches, what she looks for, how she got into coaching, and just super excited to find out more about the high school level. We had, do you know Shelton Irvin from, we had him on the podcast. Yeah, we had him on the podcast, Summer Creek. Yeah. A few months ago. Yeah, he was awesome. He told us and taught us all about the Texas system and, the double points for relays. And we didn't talk about this, and maybe we did briefly, but he is working with the TTFCA and the UIL right now. I didn't realize, and this just seems bonkers to me, you only score 6 points, 6 places at the state meet.
Yeah. So, they accept 9 athletes because UT has 9 lanes, but only 6 score. So if you get 8th place, you don't score a point. It's crazy.
Boggles me. I mean, you can argue both sides on whether the relay should be double points and whether there should be other events added. And all those, you take into account, there's some cost issues and stuff like that. But for this one, to give 1 point to the 8th place and 2 points to the 7th place, which is traditional. And in fact, if there's another state out there, hit me up on Twitter at Mike Cunningham. I want to know, but I have to believe that the other 49 states all do 8 places because they're all doing it on 8-lane track. So Texas, everything's bigger in Texas except for the scoring at state meet.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And, for me coming from that college level, as soon as I came to high school, I just assumed everyone scored and they were like, no, 7th and 8th place don't score. You put in all this work, you make it to state, you make the, you're at the big dance and it doesn't matter. You don't score. Yeah.
Do you have any idea why or how that started or maybe it just always was?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I guess it may have always just kind of been like that in Texas. I'm really not sure, but I did hear about him fighting for that. And, I'm definitely a big supporter and, even with the double points for relays, I'm also, just a supporter of some of those things as well. So I hope he's able to accomplish those things.
I agree. Texas, get with it. This is Texas has all this great things you check off for track. Awesome facilities, great athletes. I love the system where it's a finals only state meet. I really do like that as well. But then you only score 6 points. 6 places. Oh man, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, LaKeidra. See, I knew I was going to mess it up. I'm so sorry. And of course, I waited to hit record. Exactly. Yeah. Golly. And I don't do any editing, so everybody just heard that. There's no cutting that out, making me look good. I need as much help as I can, but I don't even do that. LaKeidra, let's start with you. So you were an awesome athlete. You went to the Texas A&M University. We're going to learn you were coached by a great friend of ours and really great friend of track and field, Vince Anderson. So obviously you're a great athlete because you don't go to Texas A&M unless you're a great athlete. But there had to be some point where I always like to think of it as like a switch flipped for you, that coaching went from something that gets done to you. So high school coaches coached you, college coaches coached you, that level, to where it flipped at some point and you were like, wait a minute, like I actually could be a coach. Like that's what I want to be. Talk to us. How did you mindset? When did that start happening? Flipping from athlete to like, I want to be a coach.
Well, it's really an interesting thing. I never really thought about coaching. Honestly, it was something I completely ran away from. I thought I was going to be a lawyer, or possibly an astronomist. So even at A&M, I even took astronomy classes, so coaching really wasn't even on my radar. But as I got closer to graduation, I talked to Coach Henry and Coach Anderson, honestly, just about a volunteer opportunity after college, while I go to grad school, things like that. And so Coach Henry, he agreed that, he blessed me with the opportunity to volunteer coach. And I was going to work on the men's side, actually, assisting him. But I ended up moving back home and trying to pursue running post-collegiately. It was just a dream of mine. I was like, hey, this is my one shot. Just go for it. And so I started training with my former coach, my club coach from high school, Mike Hart. And so I did that for about a year. And, I was like, okay, I just realized that passion just wasn't there for me. I needed a break from the sport altogether, and actually got into social work. So I was a social worker for a few years, working with CPS in Fort Worth, Tarrant County. So I did that, and I really enjoy giving back to the community and working with families, but I just wanted to do it in a different way. And I actually got into back in contact with my former high school coach from Mansfield Timberview. It's a school out here. And, I just kind of talked to her, and she allowed me to come out and volunteer with her team. And I just came out a few days a week, just working with the girls. And it really inspired me and lit a fire under me. I was just, I realized how much I really missed just being around coaching and working with the girls. And it was just such a amazing experience for me, coming back to my old high school and just going back to where things started, and just working with the girls, and they just listened and worked hard and just wanted to work and everything. And so that really inspired me to get into coaching. So I ended up enrolling in school online with A&M for my master's in sports management. And while I was still living in Arlington, I started volunteering at UT Arlington. Yes, with Coach Sauerheg, Coach Jordan, and Coach Edgar. And I mean, that really just solidified everything for me, that this is what I was supposed to be doing.
So let's pause there. You said you're doing masters in sports administration. What did you end up getting your undergrad in?
Sociology.
Sociology. And
right.
how many years after your undergrad graduate are we at where we're at UTA for volunteer?
It was about 5 years.
I love that. So you graduated somewhere around 21, 22 years of age. So we're talking about you're around 27 years old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I love about that is in society, and we're, as coaches, we're guilty of this, where we try to almost condemn, that's a strong word, 18-year-olds, coming out of high school, 22-year-olds coming out of college, that how many times have you heard you have to have your stuff together, right? Yeah, you're supposed to, like, at 22 years old, have it all figured out, what your career is going to be, where you're going to live, your spouse.
Yeah, right.
And reality is, so I love really at 27 is when you started finding it's interesting, all those different degrees or potential jobs that careers you're looking for, they all have service at the end of their lawyers, you're serving someone; astronomy, you're serving the greater good of science. Social work, of course, I mean, that's an unbelievable service job. So, and coaching, of course, is service. So it's always, service was always there, but it was like, what of the million different routes and careers you could go to, and that I'm gonna say it took you to 27, but I actually love that. Like, I think there's a 25-year-old out there right now that's like, man, I want to be a coach, but I don't know, because I really enjoy this aspect, or maybe I enjoy being at home and being a stay-at-home mom, and it's like, oh, I've missed out at 25, it's too late. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, I love, like, that is my favorite type of journey to get started is, yeah, I was tasting a lot of different things. I was trying to figure it out. And you know what? You don't have to be 22 and have it all figured out. I didn't start Gill until I was 30 years old. So I had 2 careers, coaching and then this crazy professional poker thing that I did. But 30 before I actually found like, oh, this is how I serve people by being here at Gill and doing this type. So man, LaKeidra, way to stick to it. You could have given up 100.
Mm-hmm.
Up to this point, going to UT Arlington, any times that you just were like, you know what, it's not as easy as I maybe wanted it, or I'm just not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just going to give up. Were there any thoughts of that during this time?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I was actually a new mom at that point as well. I had my son at 25, and I was really just trying to figure it out, what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew social work, it was just, kind of taking a toll. It's a very, very tough job, especially with CPS. I was an investigator, so I was the person that had to come knock on the door, asking parents if they were abusing their children. So I just knew I wanted to serve the community in some form or way. I'll say for me, the real trial came after I graduated with my master's and I finished volunteering at UTA. I just honestly assumed that college was instant. I was going to coach in college instantly. I was going to get paid for it. And, that's where it got tough, because that did not at all.
That is also a very important PSA for everybody. That was really good. I'm glad you brought that up. You brought up your son as well. So again, bravo for not giving up. And giving up maybe is a harsh term. I mean, giving up on this dream of coaching and going and being a social worker or being other great things, and being a mom, which of course is the most important thing. So just give bravo of like all these things. You just kept at it. Like, I'm surprised you were a sprinter. You sound more of like what I would think of a traditional distance runner, just someone who's a grinder. It's like, all right, we got to put in 80 miles this week. Well, let's go to it. It may not be pretty, but we're going to go do it. So bravo. Real quick before we continue on, before all these colleges started beating down your door because of your volunteer at UTA, what was it like? And we don't talk any X's and O's about training. There's a lot of other amazing resources out there for that. And we don't really talk about athleticism too much, but I am interested. When I coached in the SEC, we used to have a thing that we'd say, the easiest way to go from number 1 to number 100 in track and field is to go pro. So what was it like? Yeah, I want to know just a little bit of your experience of, I love that you chased that dream, because now you have no regrets. It's like, all right, I tried it, just didn't work out for me. How was that going from a great career at Texas A&M and then jumping into that big deep pool of professional track?
Yeah. It's definitely something that no amount of experience or hearing from other people will prepare you for. It's something that you just honestly have to experience on your own. And I actually experienced a little bit of it. My freshman year, I actually went to the University of Texas and I transferred to A&M. And at the time we were still in the Big 12. So I didn't get released from my previous coach, and I had to sit out a year. So I experienced being on your own, not being able to compete with your team, traveling by myself, not even being able to wear my school's logo. So I did experience that a little bit early, but I will say, as far as being like a post-collegiate athlete, you're trying to work a regular job, also trying to grind it out, finding the energy to go to practice, the workouts, and it's not the same. It really isn't. So you have to really, you have to be focused. You have to be extremely dedicated, and nutrition, all of those things. You have to really, really be, like committed to it. So it was really tough. I was a mom at that time too, just having my son and trying to get back into it. And I actually did. I competed in a meet or two, and it's so interesting because it was me and a few other of my former teammates that were post collegiates, and we were thinking we were just going to these small meets in these small cities, and then out of nowhere, we were just going to run and just be like, okay, hey, just to knock the rust off. And then they say our names, they start saying all these accolades from college. And we were like, oh, wait a minute. No, I did not want anybody to know this is me running. I just thought you were going to say my name, and I got to run. So that was not fun. I mean, they're just like, NCAA champion for Texas A&M 4x1, all these things. And I'm like, I just had a child. This is my first race in like 3 years. I'm just trying to see where I am, but I definitely don't regret it. Like you said, I tried it and I was like, hey, I went for it. I went all in and it just didn't work out, but I have no regrets about that. But it's tough. It is tough. I commend everyone. I think LaKeidra Johnson right now, she's talking about, it's tough, when she's in tip-top shape, running the fastest times of her life, trying to, get a sponsorship, and it's tough. So I commend all unsigned athletes, whether it be football, track, just professional athletes in general.
Yeah, your margin of error in college is much, much wider than it is on the elite level. The other aspect, there's two other aspects. One you touched on that I really like. Well, one aspect is, you go from being on a college team to where your schedule is already set up. Somebody's already scheduling the buses and the planes for you. Someone's giving you a uniform. Someone's telling you, hey, it starts at 1 o'clock for your event. You go to the elite side and you've got to figure out how your travel is. Your chiropractor probably goes away if you're not able to use your schools. You've got to figure out, well, what time is my actual event, and talking to meet managers and stuff to get in. So that's really tough. But the aspect that I think that really, I'm going to say hurts a lot of people, meaning this is why a lot of people maybe can't make that next step. You talked about that year where you transferred and you couldn't even put on your school's uniform, right? So you didn't have that team aspect. So you weren't going to the meeting. It's kind of the same reason why you see some people can maybe run 50 flat for the quarter, but when they get on a relay, they can run 48 and even 47. It's like, man, why can't you do that in the open? Well, in the open, it's all about me. I'm the only one on the line, but when on a relay I have 3 other people counting on me. It's that same thing. When you go pro, there is no team, and you can talk about Team USA, and I'm sure I have no experience with that, but I know that has to be some camaraderie, but that's for a finite time where on a daily basis, it's you. Like you said, they said your accolades out there, not the school's accolades or the team's accolades. It was you out there. So I think that's where a lot of people, it's probably hard for them to verbalize that part of it, but I think that's where a lot, because you talked about, you have to really be, get on practice and make sure you're doing all that. And it's like, well, man, I used to have to really worry about that because my teammates would kick my butt if I slipped. Well, if I just sleep in and don't do it, well, it's okay. It's just me. I'll do it tomorrow. No one's going to say anything. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. Well, I appreciate that experience, that level of that, because it is tough. And I'm so glad that you did it. Because again, when you're 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, there's no like, man, what could have been? It's like, hey, I tried it. And it's not that level. I mean, as good as you were, it's a different level, and it's some people got it and some people don't. And there's so many other, like you said, having a child, boy, it's so tough. And I give it up to the athletes that, who's the athlete? Isn't there a hurdler that just had her 3rd child?
Ali.
Yeah. Nia. Nia, a good golly.
And she's killing it.
Dude, come on, man.
Phenomenal. Man, I mean, for her, of course, Allison Felix. It's tough. So I definitely come in them.
Wasn't one of the quarter milers for us this past team also a mom?
I'm trying to think of her name. I know she won, I think, USA championships for us, or the Olympic trials. I can't. Thought it started with a Q, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think it's Quenisha. She went to Limestone, I think, to start, and then went to South Carolina. Burks.
Yeah.
You know how many people are yelling at us right now, LaKeidra? They're like, it's so and so, and I'm so sorry if you're listening that I just butchered your name, but I do remember, because I remember the whole mom thing with Allison, and then this one, and that's special, man. That's really amazing. Okay, last thing before we get back to your coaching. So sorry, you're a fountain full of experience, so we have to leverage this. So I just recently saw this tweet. It was really smart, I think. So NCAA Division I's just ended. I think we're listening right now on June 20th is when we published this. We're recording about a week earlier, but they said the tweet was, hey, for all you graduating seniors from the NCAA and all levels, D1, D2, D3, that are going to try to go pro, reach out to a current pro and ask them kind of like, hey, what should I look for, what I shouldn't? As someone who kind of navigated that realm, what advice would you have right now? There's a young lady or a young man who's like, maybe it's not the Trey Cunninghams, the 13 flat 100-meter guys that are, he's already signed, I'm sure, with a contract. But the 13, I don't know, 40 would still be someone who would maybe try to go pro. What
Right.
advice would you give those individuals that are talking to agents, trying to figure out what is my next step to get to USATFs and a pro career? What advice might you give them?
My advice, I mean, I think I saw that tweet as well. So I think that is a great tweet. Definitely reach out to someone that that, either they went professionally or maybe they can put you in contact with a great resource so that you can learn some things. But definitely, it's important having good people in your corner. And if you do sign a contract or, if you're fortunate enough to get one, I just think it's so tough that, they instantly kind of pull you to certain coaches, and I think it's very important for you to kind of stick where you are, wherever you are that was successful. Stay there first, I say. And then, if, it doesn't work out, with your college team or whatever, or your college coach, because of course, for them, their college team is going to come first. You graduated at this point, you're a professional. You kind of it's different for you. You're not practicing the same time as the team anymore. But I would definitely say to kind of just stay where you are first. And then from there, if you need to branch out, but don't just instantly uproot, move halfway across the country, or moving elsewhere to go train with somebody new that you don't know, they don't know you, stay where you were successful first. That would be my advice.
Yeah, it always kind of boggled me when you saw someone that had success that instantly changed as soon as they were out of college. And by the way, good friend George Williams from St. Augustine's College would always say, if you're not in the huddle, you don't know the play. So I'm not judging, but from the outside, I said, but what Bud does, it erases everything I said in front of it. I'm not judging. And what it looks like from the outside is like, oh, well, you decided that coach wasn't good enough for you to be a pro. And so you go try to find whoever the next person is. However, and this is the part I talk about, if you're not in the huddle, you don't know the play, is you don't know, to your point about the college coach going, hey, look, my focus is on the team. It would be better for you to go find something. Like it's the blessing of like, hey, let's call some people and let's help you find the right person. But I think that consistency in training is overlooked because, every athlete's a little different, right? So and it takes time to learn that athlete, and it takes time for that athlete to learn and trust that coach. And you're going to go right back to ground zero with a new coach. That's so tough, especially on that level. Again, remember the level of mistakes you can make. Yeah, margin of error. Thank you. Is small and smaller every day.
Exactly. I think we make the mistake of especially with the having elite athletes in this thing that just because they're elite, they can go and train anywhere. Coaching definitely matters, and you might go somewhere where you've been trained a certain way, and then you go to this next person and it's a complete shock to your body and your system. And now you've reverted, you're running times you ran in high school, and everybody's like, wait a minute, what happened there? So I think that, like you said, that consistency in training is very, very important. Very important.
I want to repeat something you said, and this is something I trumpet so much. You said coaching matters. A lot of my tweets are literally just replies, and it says hashtag coaching matters. We sometimes like to do as coaches, I call it, and this may be harsh if you're listening out there, coaches, and you do this, I like to call it fake humbleness, where they talk about, oh, I just drive the bus. Oh, I just, I just get them. I just register the events. Well, certainly, because, and I understand the reasoning behind it. It's like, oh, well, the athlete actually has to run or jump or whatnot. However, that athlete would not run as fast nor jump as far nor throw as far without coaching. Like coaching matters. It absolutely does. So I get a little, as a coach advocate, I get a little on edge when it's like, oh, I'm just a bus driver. I'm like, no. You might also be driving the bus. I get that. But if it weren't for what you do for that athlete and with that athlete putting together the training and the motivation and things like that, that athlete would not be as good. I'm sorry. It's who has coached themselves to be an elite athlete in this sport? No one. I'm telling you, no one. There may be someone who, after a good amount of career for their last couple of years, did what all the stuff they learned, but that was all based on what the coaches did. No one has just jumped on the scene and ran extremely, high level fast without coaching. Sorry.
Exactly.
Just doesn't happen.
It does.
Okay, that was a lot more before we actually even get into coaching. I thought I loved that. That was so much fun. That was a lot of value for listeners. Appreciate that. So you're volunteering at UTA, working with some great people. You talked about John and who else was there? You'd mentioned them. I'm so sorry.
Coach Sauerhag, Coach Edgar. He actually ran at A&M.
Yep.
Yeah. Right across from Great Britain. And then Jordan Durham.
Great people. So you do some time there. You're working on your master's at the same time at Texas A&M. What culminates to you getting ready to move on? And talk about that, the anticipation of like, oh, well, I should be able to just, these are my words. So let's make sure I'm not putting words in her mouth here. You could go anywhere you want at college. I know you didn't say that. I said that, but you thought, oh, I'll be able to get a college job.
Yes.
How did that work out? What were those steps? And talk to us about that transition.
Oh, 100%. I was extremely naive coming out. I wasn't very educated on the process with college coaching and the amount of time that you have to put in, with volunteering. And, it's like, even if you have these volunteer hours or years behind you, what else? You have to bring way more to the table. And for me, especially with being a mom, there were just certain things that I couldn't do. And I've seen some of my teammates that have gone on into coaching, and they've just done amazing things. Like they've moved to, for example, Tabari Henry, New Mexico.
Love him.
Yes, he's killing it in New Mexico, coaching. And, there were a few others who've gone to like what's the other, it's a JUCO, Barton Community College, gone off and done great things. And I'm like, man, I wasn't really willing to move. And with track in college world, you have to, really be willing to do that. And early on, I wasn't willing to do that. And I actually did have an opportunity to coach in college. And I was going to have to uproot and move my son to very, very small town. And, actually he wasn't even going to be able to come with me. I was going to have to go and go by myself, and just kind of my parents and family, everyone was willing to help. But it was just something I was just like, I can't do it. I just couldn't do it. And so, also I looked at high school as well, because I only wanted to coach in college. So high school wasn't even on my radar.
So let me ask you there. That's interesting. You said that in common, by the way, what was it when you look back now? Because now you have something that you didn't have back then, and that's experience. Like you can actually look back and you're like, oh, okay, boy, I was thinking that because of X, Y, and Z, and that was kind of dumb or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Or that was genius. What do you think it was when you had that attitude of like, I'm not coaching high school, I'm coaching college? What do you think that was?
I think for me, just competing, being blessed and fortunate enough to compete at the collegiate level, and just being around that, and then volunteering at UTA. College was really all I knew, as far as coaching wise. I really didn't know high school. And I was like, I think you think about college, it's just more, I was thinking that it was just more opportunities, more, with athletes, you're able to personally handpick, go out and recruit athletes. I'm like, high school, you're coaching who's there, honestly. And I was just really naive with that too, not understanding how dedicated some of the high school kids would be. And of course, I knew that college coaching will be a year-round thing, whereas with high school, you do get somewhat of a break, but you also teach as well. And I honestly, I hate speaking in public. I hate speaking in front of people. Yes. So I was terrified. I did not want to teach and be in the front of a classroom and talking to people. That terrified me.
Well, and I know it's one-on-one here, but you're doing a great job, because a lot of people are listening right now when we publish this. So, okay, you're going to get a lot of like requests to go speak at high school clinics. We get that a lot from guests that are, yeah. So I hope you've gotten over that. If not, we might need to work on that. All right. People want to hear your story and hear you talk. Yeah, I get that a lot because so my last coaching position was at Mississippi State, so in the SEC,
Oh,
where before A&M, thank
mhm.
goodness, before A&M, and then I left. I went to Vegas and did the poker thing and wanted to get back into coaching. And honestly, I was what's the term? Oh gosh. So at Mississippi State, we didn't want for anything. Like at Texas A&M, we had,
Yeah.
each kid got several pairs of shoes every year, many uniforms, equipment that we needed. We just ordered, those kind of things. And I became spoiled. That's the word. I was
Yeah,
spoiled.
right.
And I coached at Ball State and Troy University and JUCO in Kansas, and we didn't have those luxuries. And so I only applied for Kansas and other jobs. And when I didn't get those, it was like, well, I can't. I at least know I had that self-awareness, thank goodness,
Yes.
for that. But I do now sit back and I sit back and look, it's like, well, man, if I would have been able to drop my ego a little bit and realize that whether you coach at New Mexico Junior College, because I love Tabari, so I got to give him a shout out, whether you coach at New Mexico Junior College or McKinney High School or Texas A&M, what you do as a coach is extremely valuable beyond what the kids are running and jumping. Like your actual effect on young people is as important in the middle of Texas somewhere, in the middle of New Mexico, or at whatever you think the biggest school in the world is. Your value to those young people is just as big where your 2 feet are today. So, but I can see where when you're looking at it from where you are at that time frame, it's like, well, man, I just came from Texas A&M. That doesn't make sense to me. I get it. So how did you, I don't want to say overcome it, but how did you work yourself through that thought process to go to the next position?
Honestly, I was humbled. I really was. I actually didn't get a job after graduating. I thought, because I had my master's in sport management, I was like, okay, in order to be a head coach eventually in the college world, you have to have your master's. And I want to be an athletic director at some point. I was like, okay, let me check these things off the list. I volunteered here, check that off the list. And I actually, I didn't land anything, no job, nothing. And so I ended up actually just working at my local high school, Mansfield High School. Yeah. I worked there. I'd actually moved in with my mom, son, living with my mom, working at the local high school. And I was a special education teacher in the classroom. And, I actually kind of talked to one of the coaches about possibly volunteering. I was requesting that, but it just didn't end up working out. They didn't have any positions for me available.
You weren't coaching, you were teaching. And
yes.
Oh, wow. That had to be a little, I don't know that's, I don't know the word here. I don't want to say hurtful. I don't want to overstate and understate and put words in your mouth, but that had to be a little bit like, wait a minute, I went to school here and I'm accomplished and I've done coaching. I'm not raw here. I know what I'm doing. And there wasn't even a volunteer position. Boy, again, you could have quit 100 times, LaKeidra. Holy cow. You are a perseverance person here.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So this is a tough time. Were there anybody, mentors that, we talked about Vince and even Pat, were there people that you called to ask, maybe John or Coach Edgar, anybody, maybe your old high school, I don't know. Was your old high school coach there and he or she wouldn't even let you help out? Okay.
The crazy is she was actually retiring and she wanted me to take over for her. But at the time, I was working on my master's and I hadn't passed because again, I wasn't thinking about high school. I didn't want to do it. So I didn't take the teaching certification. I didn't do that stuff. So I actually had to go and do that. But no, she wanted me to, wanted to. She really did. She did.
So besides her, who, and maybe her, but who else did you lean on during this to talk things out and, help with it? You talked about, your advice to kids that are, going to the next level here after NCAAs. You talked about who you surround yourself with is important. Who was in your circle that you could, just sometimes maybe just have an ear to listen,
No, I leaned heavily on my family, of course. My mom, my dad, they were extremely helpful. And as far as my mentors, of course, Coach Anderson, I mean, he every single job that I've had, he has wrote me a letter of recommendation every single time, and always been a reference for me. So I leaned on him heavily. Sammy Dabbs, he's also one of my mentors that I leaned heavily on. Mike Hart, he was that, when I talk about my trifecta of coaches that inspired me: Vince Anderson, Mike Hart, Sammy Dabbs, and Cinder Bear, my coach from high school. But Mike Hart, he's definitely, I feel, one of the best, like unsung heroes as a coach. He was my summer track coach for Dallas Gold way back in the day. And, I feel that I'm gonna praise him a little bit. He would probably hate hearing anything like this, but I mean, just the amount of things he did. And if I just tell you the athletes that he trained, like, you'll probably know them, like Portia Lucas. Me and her ran for the same summer track team. Sandy Wooten, me and her ran for the same summer track team before she went to A&M. Ashley Collier. All four of us trained with the same summer track coach. And there's so many more young ladies that I can name that went to TCU, Baylor, Brittany Carr, Brittany Blaylock, just tons of athletes. And we all worked with him. And like, he really taught, it was just really the basics. And he was really well before his time. And some of our records that we ran in high school with him still stand today with summer track. Like, we were age 15. No, we were age 17. It was called Young Women back then. I know they go by ages now. And our 4x1, we ran 44-4 in the 4x1. And like, the record still stands today until, the way these kids are running, they're going to get it. But, but I just think he's one of those unsung heroes. Oh, I forgot the biggest person of all that he trained, Victoria Jordan. I forgot. She's the number one, state record holder for Texas, 11-1. That was one of my teammates as well. So all these young ladies, we all ran for the same team, and he actually trained us like from 8th grade or younger. In Victoria's case, and up, and put heavily life into me. And actually, Coach Sammy, he even allowed me to come out and train with him for a little bit during that time period. And that just really, I learned so much. Like, I was training under him, but learning at the same time. He made me keep a journal and write down workouts and what did I feel? What did I learn with this? And, it just really kept me motivated at a time when I was really just feeling lost, and kind of helped us like, what am I going to do? And the crazy, crazy thing is, there's no way I could predict where I would be literally by the end of that year. And that's when I landed at Duncanville, which is, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, because I was not even coaching at that time.
Yeah, I love it. I always tell people, it's like, hey, write down, 10 years is not that long. I've been alive for 4.5 of 10-year blocks, right? Write down in your journal or somewhere where you think you will be in 10 years. And then open that up in 10 years and laugh when you are maybe nowhere near. And I don't mean like you didn't make it. You may have, more odds are that you'll have surpassed it 100 times over. Yeah. You would have said 10 years, you'd have been like, oh yeah, I'm coaching at such and such college. Right. Yeah.
Won my umpteenth NCAA championship title at the point as a head coach, Oh man.
Did you say that Mike Hart would get upset if you were talking about him because he's so humble? Did I hear you say that? Yeah. In case Mike Hart's listening, too bad. And here's why, Mike Hart. And we haven't met, but we need to do more of this. I know people are, and especially coaches, most of us are not limelight type of people. We're servitude people. So we're doing it for others, but we have to do better at giving the accolades and thank yous to people today while they're still here with us. We've lost some amazing coaches this past year. And guess what? We don't get to say thanks anymore, unfortunately. So Mike Hart, too bad you don't want to hear her talk great about you, but you deserve it, buddy. So you're going to hear it. Someone's going to play this over and over on social media just for you, Mike Hart.
Definitely. I forgot another big one that he coached as well. Aldrich Bailey. So AJ.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Man.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He's like one of those unsung that people would probably if you ask them, they won't know who he is. They wouldn't, even at track meets, nobody knew who he was because he would just be incognito, kind of like hiding basically. But yeah, no, he's phenomenal. Amazing coach. Amazing.
See, that must have been what I was doing wrong. Cause I'd be at a track meet. I'd have like, I'd put like lights on me so everybody would see me. It's like, see what my kid just did? Yeah. Okay. So you're at Mansfield.
Yeah.
Coach wants you to take over, but this was not in your 10-year plan was not here.
Right.
So you did the teacher certificate and all that other stuff. So what happens? I'm really on pins and needles actually of where you actually get your, I don't want to say your first start, but your actual get and go here.
Yeah. So, so I go through that full year at Mansfield. And while I was there, I enrolled in alternative teaching program, certification program. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to teach and everything. And the crazy thing, I was actually subbing. I was a substitute teacher before I landed that, and I was like, okay, I realized, hey, I want to do high school, man. I really want to coach. Let's figure this out. What subject do you want to teach? And so I really fell in love with special education. Of course, like you said, that service part, they were, just the sweetest kids, great people working in that profession. Just so extremely patient, kind, loving. And I just really, really fell in love with it. So I ended up getting my special education certification and also got my PE certification. And from that point, I really just started hitting the ground, just kind of talking to some of my resources that were around in the area, some of my former coaches who like assistant coaches, and they were extremely helpful. Coach Bear was helpful. And honestly, Coach Shannon Utley, she was the coach at Mansfield Summit High School, and she coached me in high school. And I asked her, I said, hey, Coach, do you know of any opportunities for the high school level? I'm trying to, find something. Like, I want to coach. I want to learn more. I want to grow. And I really just want to if somebody would please just give me an opportunity. I was willing to volunteer wherever, and I couldn't find anything. And so she actually ended up putting me in contact with Leon Paul at Duncanville. And, we had a brief phone conversation, and he told me to be at his office. And honestly, I didn't think anything about who I was going to be coaching. I didn't care, boys, girls, age. I did not care. I just wanted to coach. So I showed up, and, I just talked about everything that I knew, why I wanted to coach kids, what I loved about the sport, and just the things that I've learned along the way. And again, I'm coming in with no experience, honestly. I just volunteered for a year at UTA, but that's all the experience I had coaching. And, he told me that he had already interviewed all my references before I had even shown up that day. He had already talked to Vince Anderson. That's one of the first people he talked to, who gave me a, beaming recommendation. He had already talked to the coaches at UTA. He had already talked to my high school coach there, and, he was just waiting to meet me to see if everything that they said actually lined up with it. And he told me that a year later, he told me he was actually looking for a jumps coach when he interviewed me. But when he interviewed me, he said, okay, I got to bring her in. She knows her stuff. I think she'll be great. She just needs the opportunity. And he blessed me with that opportunity. He allowed me to come in the door, and I was just extremely blessed, very blessed.
Did he make you coach jumps, or did he take that and you took sprints, or how did that pan out?
Yes. So with him being the head coach, he was over the short sprints program. He already had a throws coach. He had a longer sprints coach, distance coach, all those things. He was coaching a distance coach, and I was reaching in, calling me. Okay. And so he just needed a jumps coach. So once he brought me in, he said, hey, I'm going to allow you to coach the short sprints and relays. I'm going to coach the jumps. And so he actually went and started coaching the jumps. And that wasn't his specialty or forte, but he went and, did some more research and everything. And yeah, he allowed me to coach that group.
you may not even pay attention. You are probably smarter than I. You are smarter than I am, LaKeidra. So you probably don't even pay attention to this. So the only thread that I ever read on, like it or not, letsrun.com. I'm not a huge fan of the website, but there is one thread every year that talks about coaching changes, right? And there's some wild speculations that people have no clue, and then there's people you might be surprised that are on there, but there's this and it's not just this thread, it's among coaches and specifically college coaching as well. There is this story, I'm going to call it a fabrication, that women and minorities and former athletes, especially former good athletes, get all the jobs.
Yeah. No.
You are telling the exact opposite story, which I think might be more about reality, to be real frank. So I 100% believe that who you know gets you the job in a lot of cases, not all cases, but in a lot of cases. Now, what you know keeps you there or keeps you getting jobs. But I certainly think this is a relationship business. So you're going to have to know somebody, or to your point about, Vince and Sauerhagen, those guys, like, you better have a circle, a cadre of people speaking for you then, if they don't know who you are. But it's just amazing as you're telling me this story, and I'm thinking like, wow, what were your PRs out of college?
So in college I ran about 1140, 23 to
So great athlete on a you didn't go to a small school. You didn't go to, I went to Troy University. You didn't go to Troy, you went to Texas A&M, for crying out loud. You've got Pat and Vince, two of the juggernauts in this industry. You're a female. I don't know, you might not, maybe you haven't picked up on that. She's also African-American. You may not picked up, you may actually not know that if you're not watching on YouTube. So here is what everybody says, well, this type of person that I just described should have any job she applies for. And yet here we are trying to get like you said, you're like, I'll volunteer. What do you need me to do here? Let me in the door here. Wow. And again, perseverance. Oh my.
Thank you. Yeah. I applied to so many jobs. I was looking on NCAA the website, for jobs. And I mean, I was just applying, and high school jobs around the area I was applying, and they were just like, you were a former athlete, you have the experience of coaching, and it was like, how can I get that experience if you won't give it to me? So that's actually something now that I try to do, bring as many people along as I can, that are trying and haven't. I'm like, hey, come talk to me. Like, I'm going to be a reference. Awesome. I can hire you. I will, just to, a lot of people just need to have that, get that foot in the door. It's just hard to do.
You're using that level that you're at now to help bring others with you and to give voice and be an advocate for, it's like, man, this kid may not be a coach one day, but boy, they sure want to try it. And doesn't everybody get deserve to get a shot at most things? Now, if you want to be an astronaut, maybe you don't get a shot to be an astronaut if you don't do all that stuff. But we are talking about coaching track and field here, so let's be a little lenient here. Well, I just love that. So, and shout out to Leon Paul. I'm pretty sure we follow each other on Twitter as well. And I know I've only heard, like, on Twitter, I only read good things about him, which kind of makes me wonder, but it's always a lot of good things there about Leon Paul. So I love that he gave you a chance. What did you do? So how did you embrace this? I mean, you have to be just, what is the old term? Chomping at the bit. You got to be like, okay, finally I'm out here. What did you do for your actual coaching development? Did you just, I shouldn't have said just, do you fall back on the ways Coach Anderson coached you, which it's not a bad option. Right. Did you do any coaching education? Did you learn from Coach Paul? What was now that you're coach now, what did you do to help continue to get better at your craft of coaching?
Yes. And I think what you said is extremely important. Like, as a coach, if you feel that you've learned everything, you're not continuing to grow. You're, going to become, even more irrelevant. Your kids aren't going to improve. You're not going to get better. So just, you have to constantly learn. And initially, as soon as I came out and got into coaching, like my first year, I was definitely just everything that I had learned at that point from my years as an athlete. So I combined all of my, my mentors like into one. So I combined what I learned with Vince Anderson, combined that with Sammy Dabbs, and combined it with Mike Hart. And a little bit of my own things that I was thinking and tweaking and wanting to try. So I just like honestly combined all of those things into one. And I would always call Coach Anderson and pick his brain and ask him questions, and Coach Dabbs as well. Like I would call him and ask him questions about workout or things like that. So just continuing to learn in that way. My first year, but after that, that's when I started going to the coaching schools and, you know, getting to hear some great, amazing speakers and just taking notes. Oh, this is gonna kill me. She's coaching at Alabama this year, sprint coach, but she came from the high school level.
You're not talking about Carmelita Jeter, who's now at USC. She was at Alabama. I don't know how to pronounce her first name. Raquaya Gibson.
Yes, Rakaya Gibson.
Yeah, Rakaya. Yeah, she's awesome. I met her at the coaching convention. What a great person. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes, extremely. And so like I went and listened to her speak, and it was so funny. Me and Coach Paul, we were there, and he was like, hey, in a few years, that's going to be you up there speaking. And I was like, absolutely not. There's no way. You know, but yes, I just listened to her, and she was just amazing speaker. At the time, she was still coaching in high school, and Coach Anderson was one of her mentors as well. And, you know, coaching school, I'm like, I need all of my assistant coaches. We have to go. Like, you just learn so much. But that, and also even the online resources, books, constantly getting books and reading, and just, you mentioned Boo Schneider, you know, just learning from these greats. And even right now, I really, really want to learn more from Coach Holloway and Coach Flo. I'm like, that's the blueprint right there, you know. But yeah, just always reading, learning, and researching things, not just taking what someone says and saying, oh, this is going to work, because I'm a visual person, but I'm hands-on as well. And I don't teach things that I haven't personally done or tried, because I really want to know that this actually works. I'm not just going to say it to my kids because, oh, somebody said this is great. You know, I want to try it myself and kind of see like, oh, okay, I can feel what that's doing. But yeah, just constantly learning. And so I pulled from those resources, the coaches that I was around as well. We had a really great group of coaches, and yeah, so I just pulled from that. And of course, great athletes. You know, Duncanville has some of the best athletes in the country all around. So
well, I like that you didn't settle on your laurels, meaning, so, you know, I think of, there are a ton of amazing coaches out there, and then there is like this next level of just guys and gals that are just a different level. Boo Schexnayder is one of them. Clifford Velto at Kansas State is one of them. And Vince Anderson is one of them. So you could have easily taken the position of like, well, I was coached by the best, so I don't really need to learn. But here's where I think people sometimes make a mistake with that. So while I don't know that I disagree with anything Vince Anderson says coaching wise, you know, as far as X's and O's. I think I coached similarly, just not as well as he did, but I think we were in the same belief system. However, when you're an athlete of Vince Anderson, when you're an athlete of anybody, athletes are selfish. They have to be. Meaning, when a coach tells you something, you are trying to figure out how to decipher that and execute the plan for you to get better. You're not thinking about, oh, well, how would I do that? How would I take what Coach Anderson's saying and do that with a group of sprinters? You know, so coaching is selfless. You're taking what you learn and outward towards athletes. As an athlete, especially at the levels you were at and your teammates were at, it was okay. Well, how do I take that to become faster in the 100 or to become faster in the relay or you know? So if you just say, well, I was coached by the best, I'll just do what he did. It's like, well, you don't actually understand it. You executed it maybe, but you don't understand how to teach it, the motivation behind it, the progressions behind it, the reasoning behind it. So I love that you didn't just, because honestly, you could have said, oh yeah, I just do what Vince says. And it'd be hard for me to argue, but I'd be like, well, you know, there's more things to it. So I love that you, other mentors, Sammy, of course, and some other guys and gals out there that you went to clinics, books. I love that there was like, oh yeah. Okay. I might be good, but if I want to continue to get good and better, well, I better learn from others. That's awesome. I love that. So how did that first year go? Again, I just had this image of you just like every day at practice, like just jacked to be out there because you're just so excited to have the opportunity. How had that first year go as far as coaching? Not necessarily, you know, with the accolades of the team, but were there any shocks where you like, oh man, I didn't realize I'd have to deal with this as a coach. Maybe I made the wrong decision. Were there any of those, or was it all just positive, getting out there and having a fun time and coaching track?
You know, it was different because I was only coaching on the boys side. So I was coaching male sprinters, male short sprinters, 6A in Texas, which is, you know, the biggest that it gets in Texas. And I think Duncanville had about like 5,000 plus students in the high school. Yeah, that year they graduated like 1,000 seniors. Like, so huge school, huge
Holy
amount.
cow.
Oh yeah, no, huge, 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 huge. And you know, I really, again, my experience was in college. Nothing could have prepared me for those boys. I mean, they were, energy level, they were fun, but they were high schoolers. You know, they were extremely talented, but the majority were football players. So that was also a dynamic that I had never experienced before. But our head coach, he was adamant. He wanted us to be around them because he wanted us to know them before they came to track. So I actually traveled with the football team. We would go to a few practices, but yeah, we would travel with the football team. We were actually like on the sideline at the games and really learning the kids and getting to know them before they came to our season to track. And so they were just, man, I mean, that first year, it's honestly, I can't even believe how well it went. I was very, all I can say is just very blessed and fortunate with the group of guys that we had. One of them, it was his senior year, and his name was Marquez Beason. He actually played football at Illinois. Yeah, he just transferred this past year. He just transferred, but I mean, he was coming in as a 10-5 kid, you know, and then I was blessed to get to coach this kid in high school, and he ended up running 10:30 for us. He ran 20.95 in the 200, and
Wow.
this was also Pierre Gorie's first year, who was ranked number 1 in the country this year in the 100, won state in Texas in the 100. But his first year as a freshman, I mean, this is also somebody who's coming in, and he had ran like, I think 11 flat, 10.9 as an 8th grader. So, you know, he ended up running 10.8 during the season and then 10.5 that summer as a freshman. So, wow. I mean, you put all those together, and we had, I mean, it was amazing. Our 4x1 ran, they were ranked number 1 in the country. They ran 40.5. Yeah, my as a coach. And I kid you not, the very first meet we had at Duncanville, you know, and I wasn't familiar with boys' times, especially high schoolers.
Sure, right, yeah.
Anything meant. So we had our first track meet in February. It was about 30 degrees. We ran the 4x1, and our first leg, and actually all 4 guys on that relay, they were all football players. Our first leg, Javon Fountain, he just demolishes the field on first. I have our freshman, Pierre Gorie. He started out on varsity, never ran a JV meet ever. And so I threw him in the fire, and he just, you know, rose to the occasion. He demolishes everybody on second. Marquez Crowell, he opens up the third leg, and then fourth leg, Marquez Beason, he was just running by himself. And then I'm just looking, and I was like, ugh, God, these handoffs are terrible. Like, we have so much work to do. Like, God, this is, I'm just like this. And then they're all excited and stuff because we won. And so the head coach comes over to me, Coach Paul, and he was like, do you realize what they just did? And I was like, no, what do you mean? And then he was like, they just ran 41.3 in 30 degrees. The first time ever running together. And I was like, oh, is that fast? What does that mean? You know, I had no idea.
Right.
But
because you only know, like, okay, the A&M boys ran 38.90 or 39 flat, so they didn't run that. Yeah, right. You know, and your team ran 44. So like, well, they better run faster than the females at A&M. You know, but yeah, you had no. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Very, very. I had no idea. Yeah, what those times meant, and so I was learning as the boys were running what's fast, what's not fast, and so I mean, that first year was so great. Like, I learned so much. You know, just kind of like with boys, and then coming from college, I was used to everything just being kind of like strict time, and everything goes in a box. It's orderly. It's this and that. When you're in high school, like, you have to teach them those things, that they don't just come ready. Whereas in college, you know, they're here, you know, a lot are on scholarships, some aren't, but what they're here for. With those guys, some guys were just like, hey, I just want to get fast for football. So, you know, you're just dealing with different things, different dynamics, and you really have to teach. And that first year was just like, you know, it was very it was very fun, but it was also trying, you know, emotionally too, because you're like, man, how do I get these group of guys to you know, really just 100% buy in maybe, and you know, just focus. And honestly, once they, and you know, as a woman as well, you're dealing with some of those things too. But I mean, my boys, they just did amazing. And I mean, if any male coaches even came around, you know, they were just like, what are you doing? Like, this is our coach, you know, like they would not even let anybody attempt to discredit or say, why do y'all have a female coach or anything like that. And I mean, that first year was just, I mean, legendary, honestly. It was amazing. Amazing.
I mean, let's not get it twisted. When you're talking about a freshman in high school, you're talking about a 14-year-old kid. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, let's think about let's not think about when I was 14. Think about where you were when you were 14. You weren't this buttoned up. Oh yeah, I'll practices at X time and my events at this time. Yeah, come on, man. You're absolutely. That's so awesome. Well, I want to explore this football thing because I think that's so cool. I love the attitude of like, yeah, we're gonna get to know these boys. Like, it's not just about track. We're gonna like know them and the other activities that they do. Was Coach Paul, or is Coach Paul a football coach as well, or is he just track?
Yeah, he's a football coach. So at Duncanville, wide receivers coach and head track, and now he's just head football at Lancaster High School.
Gotcha. So when you came to football practice, it wasn't like, oh, here's a track coach. It was like, oh, okay, Coach Paul, and then, oh, this is his new assistant. No, okay, yeah. You were you coaching anything in football, or was it just an observatory and relational?
Yeah, just observatory relational. Now we would coach like over the summer, the other track coaches and I. Coach Paul would have us come out, and the head football coach, they actually talked and they worked it out to where we would come out and we actually had like stations during their summer training, and we would teach them sprints. Like, we would teach them mechanics, how to sprint, how to be aggressive, explosive, those things. So yeah, we ran our stations just about 2 to 3 times a week during a certain time period over the summer. And yeah, that was another way for us to get to know the boys and work with them, work with the football coaches, and really teach them how to run and how to run properly with mechanics. I mean, we even had like, you know, old linemen, I'm talking about big boys running wickets, you know, those type of things, and they just loved it.
When we do something new or experience something new, we're kind of that fish out of the water, and we get nervous, and you know, you don't know what are the not just even the rules of the a sport in this case, but just the norms and means, and what, you know, what's the culture like. Assuming that you didn't play high school football, what was it? Okay, just had to make sure. What was it like when, first of all, coach is like, yeah, you're going to come to football practice and stuff. And it's like, oh, you know, one hand might be like, if you like football, you're like, oh, that's cool, okay. But then when you get there and you're on the sidelines, you're not up in the stands just observing. You're in the mix. Whether you're coach or not, you're in the mix. People are flying by you to get on the field. People are coming next to you and cussing because they missed a play or whatever, blah, blah, blah. What was it like those first couple of times, and how were you? I don't necessarily want to ask how you were treated, because I hope that there was respect of an adult, whether you're male or female, that there was just respect of an adult. But how was it as you were kind of, you know, really kind of trying to feel your oats a little bit, and like, okay, so offense is out there and that's what this guy's doing, and these coaching staffs, and when their defense is doing this, when they're on there, how did you kind of get acclimated to the culture side of a football practice and maybe even the games?
Oh man, they were like, you know, I feel like Coach Paul and the coaches, like, they did such a great job of introducing me to the boys that they didn't see me as anything other than, oh, that's just Coach Stu. Like,
oh, nice.
Nothing, like, it was not weird or anything. I know when I first got out there, you know, I was just a stranger, so it was kind of like, it was this person. And so, but I mean, for me, I think that's something that was just extremely like amazing, because, you know, as a woman, like I've always, you know, Texas football is life for us. So my mom loves football. I love football. All my cousins played football. Like, I have family that played in the NFL and all this stuff. Like, if I was a boy, there's no question. I'm going to 100%. So I've always loved it. But just getting the opportunity to like actually like be in a football locker room, like listening to these football speeches, like seeing the culture, like your team is down, like it's the state game. I've been to what is it, 2 or 3 state championship games in the locker room, and been able to hear these coaches speak life into these boys and just see the focus and the dedication and determination from these guys. And it was something I had never experienced before. And it's something that I bring to coaching now, just being able to experience that. I know a lot of women don't get the opportunity to experience that culture. And, you know, and I mean, I'll say Duncanville, it's different, you know, it's very, very different. And I got to experience that firsthand. And yeah, they were extremely welcoming. And, you know, by the time they came out to the track, they already knew us. So they were ready to go. They were ready to run through a brick wall for you.
Being biased, being a track guy who also, you know, I'm from Alabama. So yeah, I know Texas is football. We think Alabama is football king. So, but being biased as a track person first, I know the football staff and kids learn from a track coach. Not only, you know, how to run fast, but just, you know, what to focus on, you know, how to remove distractions and things like that. Did you learn anything from football? You talked about being at like the halftime talks and, you know, being down and it's the game, you know, there is no more games after that and things like that. Did you learn anything from being around that football culture that you took back to track? And I don't even necessarily mean as a woman who was in the football practice for the first time. I mean, there's plenty of guys who would be at a football practice or at a halftime and have no clue what's going on. So just from that learning of football, did you take anything as you moved along in your career from that experience?
Oh yes, definitely. I think honestly, first of all, Duncanville has one of the greatest football coaches. And I mean, I believe he's the winningest Black coach in Texas, Reginald Samples. And you know, he just being able to even be close and around and seeing how he runs his program. And, you know, it's just a fine, well-oiled machine. Like the kids know, the coaches know. I learned a lot just with organization and motivation, and even just talking to the kids. Like it was just a lot. And honestly, just that I would always, when I was at UTA, my kids would ask me, hey coach, what was it like training at A&M? What was the practice environment like? And so I would tell them, you know, practice was like a track meet every day. Like you were running for your life because everyone is fast. I mean, you know, these girls are running 22 at practice. So you're running for your life. It was a track meet every day at practice. It was aggressive. It was fast. That's honestly how Duncanville approaches things. That's how they train. You know, it was just aggressive. It was fast paced. And I learned that a lot. And that was something that those guys, the mentality that they brought that with them from football to track. And that's really how they attacked practice. Like they would hear times and it was just all out competitive because they wanted to beat the next person.
That's what I wondered. What I was getting there is, but you know, take away the X's and O's. You weren't there to learn,
right? No.
You know, how to run an offense or defense or special teams. But I believe that leadership is leadership is leadership. So that's what I wondered, if you learned like that kind of culture. And because I think there is, as much as I know and believe that, you know, cross-pollination amongst coaches. So talking to with other coaches and how they do things. And again, not just X's and O's, but how they run practices, how they recruit, how they set up their schedules, et cetera, is extremely important amongst track to track peers. I think there's a lot possibly for us to learn from successful baseball coaches and football coaches and volleyball coaches, that leadership is leadership is leadership. So learning how they cultivate practice, how they bring the team together, that's important regardless of what's going on in the actual field. You bring it back to your sport and then adapt it. So that's interesting. Okay, before we move off football, you said if you had been born a male, you would have played football. What position do you think you would have played? I want to know that.
You know, I've learned so much about just watching guys, like the position stuff. You know, I used to be like, oh, wide receiver, running back. You know, I think I could have been really good at those positions and stuff, but honestly, I think I would have wanted to be like a DN or somebody, just like out there just hitting people, you know, just fun. Like those guys are just crazy. But Either that or like a DB. I just think the personalities they come with, just the aggressiveness, I love it. I want to do something like that.
It's funny. Maybe it's my speed bias. I was like, oh, receiver or running back. That's the two
Of
right
course,
there. Yeah.
right? Right. That's what everybody's like.
I love it. So,
but DB, man, they can run. They can
yeah,
run.
I love it. I love it. You'd have been I think you'd have been the showman, like Deion Sanders. You'd have been one of those. Like, if you go do it, you're just gonna do it with flair.
Right. I love it. Love it.
So, how many years were you at Duncanville, and how, give us 30,000-foot level? How did it go during that time there?
Yeah, I was at Duncanville for 3 years. And every single one of those years, our 4x1 was ranked number 1 in the country at some point of the year, or in the top 3. My second year, we were top 3. And unfortunately, COVID shut us down that 2020 year. I think that was our best year. We had some studs there. And they were football players. We had one, Ennis Rakestraw, playing at Mizzou, playing football for them right now. We had Ryan Starr, who is a sprinter jumper at Ole Miss right now. He was a part of that team, and Goree was a part of that team. He's been a part of every single relay every year there. So you had him. We had Roderick Daniels Jr. He's playing football at SMU. I mean, we just had Dante Hamilton. He just signed to run track at University of Houston. I mean, just studs, man. It's just studs. So every year it's like we were just running fast, and I mean, it was just a joy to really see them grow and get better. And it's like they took pride in running track, and the football players, they wanted to run. They just understood, like, hey, you want to be fast, you're gonna run track. Like the first year, we had to like talk to them and convince them of some buy-in and things like that. But after that, it was like just understood, like they would sell it for us. They were like, hey, I mean, if you want to be fast, you need to run track, that type of thing. So
during those 3 years, did you stay as the boys sprint coach?
Yeah.
And maybe you added hurdles just because that's common, or no?
Nope.
Okay.
I was just strictly boys short sprints.
No girls coaching at Duncanville. No. Okay. No. Coach Paul didn't say, look, man, you need to start doing these jumps. I'm going back to these sprinters. You're doing too good of a job. I want them back. So you stayed as the boys sprints, short sprints coach.
Yes.
And so where do we go next, and why? I mean, I can see in the smile on your face, you enjoyed your time there at Duncanville. What was the next adventure, and why?
So for me, ultimately, I wanted to be a head coach, and I had learned so much. And it's one of those things, just like with me wanting to, everybody's dream when you run track, you want to go to the Olympics. So I had to try. I had to at least try. Even if I didn't succeed at being a head coach or didn't enjoy it, it was something that I was like, you know what, this is something I want to do. And I felt I was becoming really, like I was very just kind of like, man, okay, I'm content. This is perfect. I am good. I can retire at Duncanville. I am good. And it's just like, life just kind of happens. And I felt like that God was just moving and making moves and making calls to me like, hey, all right, like go for it. What are you afraid of? And so our head coach, Coach Paul, he ended up leaving for a head football coaching opportunity. And so the Duncanville job opened up, and it was a hot, huge job. Everybody wanted it.
Sure.
At that time, I was his associate head coach, and of course, I wanted the job. Everybody in the country wanted that job, and it was huge job. And at the same time, I was also just kind of looking, keeping my eyes open for head coaching opportunities, because that's what I wanted. And it's like as soon as I spoke it into existence, McKinney popped up out of nowhere, and they reached out to me, and then I was just like, I don't really know too much about McKinney. I'd never even visited the area before, and they just kind of told me about the school, told me about the program, the area, those things, and I ended up coming out and visiting, and I was just like, man, like it felt like a home environment, like somewhere warm and welcoming, and they were just like, hey, we want you to bring you here and just help us, improve, get better, like show these girls like what they're capable of. And it was actually coaching girls, which I hadn't done yet.
Yeah.
I had been coaching boys for so it was completely different. But I just feel like when God opens doors for you, you know, whether you're ready, whether you're afraid or not. You just kind of have to go through those doors. And I mean, 3 years prior, I couldn't even get a volunteer opportunity. And now I had somebody calling me about a head coaching job. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, this is wow. And so, yeah, so it was scary. It was different. It was extremely scary. And, you know, I talked to my family and everything. So I really just, I went for it. I just 100% went for it.
So I don't know where Duncanville is and McKinney is.
Mhm.
Are you now teaching at McKinney? Or are you still teaching at Duncanville and coaching at McKinney? I've heard of that possibility. What about the actual teaching component for you?
So I'm 100% at I'm sorry, I'm 100% at McKinney, and I coach PE. So this is my first year coaching PE, because I was a special education teacher at Duncanville. But yeah, so I coach PE and I'm girls track. And actually, I was the head. It's funny you mentioned distance earlier because I actually coached cross country this year as well. So I was head girls track and then head cross country coach. So
Nice.
very different, very different.
And this is the end of your first year at McKinney.
Yes.
So with all of your experience coming into the coaching with guys, did you find any difference coaching women? Was there any, maybe not so much the X's and O's part, while there may be some volume differences. I don't know that you coach a 100-meter female sprinter different than you do a 100-meter male, in big swath there. But there might be differences in how you speak or structure practices, or I don't know. Tell me, was there any differences, or was it like, no, there's different people. There's just a different gender or whatnot.
Honestly, yeah, very different. But I think that's more so not just necessarily because it's boys and girls, but more so just what's the word? Like I guess just not demographics, but just different areas. You know, like Duncanville is more southern area. So it's just like southern area. So you have like more what's the word? It's kind of it's more of a, I think it's called a Title IX school, you know, money wise, you know, the
you're talking about like on the
socioeconomic status.
socioeconomic scale. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a lot different. So it's just a lot different, you know. Whereas McKinney is one of the most affluent areas in the state of Texas. So with that comes a whole different, you know, can of worms with different things. But overall, I'll say my girls, they'll tell you I'm crazy, you know, because I literally I did not talk to them any differently than I talk to the boys, than I talk to the girls. I literally talk to them exactly the same, like, you know, and to me, and I even said, like, one of my mottos is, you know, you can't you can't run from me if you're not a dog. So, and what that means is, like, you have to be like, you have to have some internal intensity, like some fire about you. And I mean, I'm out here coaching these girls, and I'm coaching these girls hard. Like, I'm a woman as well, you know, and we're not gonna sugarcoat, we're not gonna put any sprinkles. I'm like, no, like, y'all are tough. Y'all are tough young ladies. Y'all are tough women. Like, you know, y'all are gonna go out there and you're going to be fearless. You're not going to have anything to fear. I'm going to teach you and show you these things. And so that's honestly the mindset that I took with it. And, you know, they'll tell you I'm crazy. They're like, coach is nuts, but whatever it takes, you know, to like bring out the best in them. But girls, I will say girls are very, very different, but they're fun as well. Like, intensity wise at practice, they just like, you know, they're playful and all those things, whereas girls can kind of like focus a little bit more. In my experience, they kind of focus in more. But you, as once you get to know your athletes and learn how to, you know, talk to them and what they need, you can get boy, girl, whoever age, whatever age group, you know, get the best out of them. So
how did you, as you learn from Coach Paul and how, you know, he had this attitude of, we're not just going to be track coaches, we're going to get to know the individual. So that means football practice and things like that. With the girls team at McKinney, obviously or not obviously, you don't have football practice to go to with them. How did you incorporate that into this new situation? I assume they're playing other sports, maybe volleyball and soccer or whatnot. Did you start going there, or was would the cross country consume that time? So you're like, man, I had cross practice and then it went straight into track season.
Yeah. So there were a few girls that came from different sports like basketball, volleyball, soccer, and honestly just talking to the coaches and, popping out and going to different games and things like that, like just attending those things. And they actually allowed me the opportunity to talk to all the female athletes as soon as they hired me. So that was a thing. Yeah. So I honestly got to talk to them about, how doing high jump can help with shooting a layup for basketball, how it can help volleyball, vertical, all that good stuff, so just talking to them about those things I think was very helpful. But it's just something that I've even today, like I mentioned, talking to Coach Anderson, I talked to him a few days ago. My high school coach, Coach Bear, I literally just talked to her a few days ago. Coach Sammy, I talked to him like last week or the week before that. And to me, a coach isn't somebody that just pops into your life that, they just coach you for the short amount of time and then they move on, you're done with them. Like, these are people that I still, like, I consider family, like inviting to my wedding, like they are family to me. And so that's something that I do, like but it's just a relationship I build with my kids. And once I coach them, they're my kids. They're my babies, no matter what. Matter of fact, some of my girls, we would see Duncanville like at a meet or something, and the boys would come and hug me. And my girls were trying to understand, like, Coach, why do you still talk to them? You don't coach them anymore. And I'm like, hey, y'all are still, like, even when y'all girls go off to college, y'all are still my family. Y'all are I'm always going to be here. Whatever you need, I'm a phone call away. I want to build those relationships. And so, just connecting with them outside of just track, that's extremely important to me. So that was, I did that with I do that with all my kids, my girls, boys, whoever, just talking to them about anything.
A lot of people say stuff, it's harder to model and do that. So I love that modeling of your former athletes and your current athletes. Well, wait a minute, it's not McKinney. It's like, yeah, guess what, if you transfer schools or God forbid I move to another school, we still have that experience. We still have that. Really, I don't just cut you off because I'm gone. I love that model. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
After you have this year of experience coaching girls on the high school level and the several years coaching boys, do you have a preference, or do you want to coach both boys and girls one day?
Honestly, I think it's so fun coaching both. Honestly, I think it is so fun. I think because even at McKinney, we did a model. They wanted to try this for my first year coming in, where our program was actually combined. So like our short sprinters, boys and girls, trained together. Our distance group, of course, they all trained together. Hurdlers, boys and girls, trained together. So we had double the coaches. I just honestly think that model just works so well, and you really get the best of both worlds. I think they're fun, intensity wise is there, because the boys want to run fast because the girls are there, the girls are wanting to run fast because the boys are there, but they're really just they're listening. As long as you got to have your structure, of course, and time and making sure things are going, because of course it can get wild if you let it. But yeah, I think it's fun having both. Like I just think having both together is really fun.
Have you reached out to coaching any other events, any jumps or hurdles or?
I have some great assistant coaches.
There you go.
And it's so sad because I've had some great resources, Sammy Dabbs and Vince. I mean, those are some great hurdle coaches. And like, they both have told me that I probably know more. And even my fiance, he's an amazing hurdle coach. And I'm like, they tell me all the time that I know more than I think I do. But, man, that's tough. But I did attempt to kind of learn pole vault. That was a completely different world.
Oh, wait a minute. I was going to try to give you the layup here and do hurdles or something. You talking about doing pole vaulting.
It's because I have, in McKinney, we have some pole vaulters. And so, wow. I mean, I attempted, I commend, I praise, and I like to learn and talk to pole vault coaches. And, they tell me how, hey, it's very similar to hurdles, the rhythm, and, they're talking about the power and arms, and I'm listening to them, and I'm just like, my mind is blown right now.
Now,
out of this.
Earlier you said you like to do a workout or an
Yeah.
exercise. Have you tried pole vaulting?
No. Exactly. No. It's not one of those, those who can't teach. I am not doing that one. No. No. And that's another reason why I wouldn't trust myself to do it. That's why I'm like, y'all, I'm going to find y'all a coach, because I cannot. Sorry.
That was my sanity check for you. It's like, all right, let's see how crazy. Oh, she's sane. All right, good.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But distance, I coached distance this year, and that was, wow, that was a completely new world. I mean, I honestly have so much more. I think more people should do it and at least try it, because like sprint coaches, I developed so much respect for distance coaches, distance kids. I mean, I would hear things, and I was very, this is going to sound extremely ignorant. I just thought that they woke up one day and they could run a mile. Like I didn't know. I really didn't know the amount of work that they have to put in, like day one with summer training, and adding mileage, and, every week kind of going up in the mileage, and hitting times and running for a certain amount of time. I mean, I hear going for a 45-minute run, and I'm like, what? Why? And they just kill it. They're fun. They were so fun though.
I like that you learned that appreciation by hands-on coaching, because, there's a lot of chatter amongst coaches, what's the hardest event, right? 400 hurdles or 800. You hear that a lot and things like that. And it's like, actually every event, because they are unique, even the 100 to 200, which might be the closest to events, maybe.
Yeah.
There's still differences. Like, to be a good 200-meter runner, that's hard. To be a good shot putter, that's hard. To be a good 2-miler, it's hard. There is no harder event. They're all stinking hard. And usually the argument is on the elite level, and it's always like, oh gosh, that's even harder. Like, whatever, to make the Olympics, every event is stinking hard. So I love that you learned that appreciation. Like, wow, man, I thought you just got up and ran. It's like, oh no, you actually had to plan and race pace repeats and hill workouts and cross, and you got the 100% even added layer in Texas, much like in New Mexico and Arizona, is you have weather on the hot side. So safety wise, the northern schools, Minnesota and Dakotas, they've got to worry about, as we get deeper into the season, the cold. You've got to really worry about the heat for these kids as well, because which, same with football players and things like that as well. So that's awesome. So as we start to wrap up here, LaKeidra, you talked about earlier during your UTA volunteer days about like, I'm going to coach college. That's what I know. It's, that's what I'm going to do. And you're having an amazing career here in the first 4-ish years of your high school coaching career, doing an amazing job. I'm not even in Texas, and I hear a lot about you. It's why you're here on the podcast, so I love that. Not that you have to look into the crystal ball and predict the end game future, but we talked about that 10-year plan and laughing at it when you actually hit 10 years. But what's the thought here? Stay and do an amazing job on the high school level? Do you eventually maybe want to coach in the college level? What are you thinking here?
It's so funny because like originally I stated, like, I didn't even think about high school. I wasn't considering it. I really only saw college. That was it. And I think when you do that, you miss things that are right in front of you sometimes. And I really did miss, that opportunity, like, to be able to coach in my alum. Like, that's huge, but I don't currently have collegiate aspirations, which is so interesting. I just being able to work on the high school level, you really get to forge these relationships with your kids, like these bonds, and like helping them achieve things that they didn't think that they could do, pulling things out of them. And, I feel that just with my experience, being at the, getting an opportunity to run in college, there's just so much knowledge that I can share with them. And I'm learning from them too. Like, they're not cookie cutter. You can't approach every kid the exact same way. Like, I can't say, hey, Vince Anderson did this, it works, And I'm like, you're just not doing. No, I need to go back to the drawing board and look and say, how can I help this kid improve? Like, what do I need to do? And it's kind of like a puzzle piece. So I really, really enjoyed that. And I honestly just want to build from build a program brick by brick, layer by layer, helping other coaches along the way, me continuing to learn from other people, and all of those great things. So I'm just really excited just to continue that process of learning and seeing how that continues to develop. And of course, I want to send my kids off whatever goals they have, like college. I want to be able to send my kids to college if that's their goal, for them to achieve these things, qualifying for state. I want to help them achieve those things, winning state, of course, winning district titles, state titles. Those are things that I want to create and, just continue to grow and build, which is why I said Mike Holloway and Coach Flo, look, I'm ready to buy some books. I'm ready to learn some more there.
Well, that's kind of the cool thing about track, and I don't necessarily know that it is or is not in other sports, but even the guys and gals that are at the absolute top of our whatever level, whether it's high school or college. You mentioned two great ones there in Flo and Mouse. Mouse just won both titles, and Flo just was second on the mint, second on the
both.
Second on both. That's right. And one indoors. Right. Those guys are just salt of the earth. What do you say? Put their pants on one leg at a time, just like we do. But they just, seem to coach better in those pants than I do anyway.
Right.
But they're amazing. But I love that. I love, what I heard you say there about, college versus coaching high school for you is that when you were at the UTA time frame of your career, you kind of shut that door of high school. You're like, that's not for me. And maybe you missed out on a couple of great years of coaching high school. Who knows? You don't look in the past.
Yeah.
But I hear you saying like, I don't necessarily want to coach college. Like, that's not my drive right now. You're easily enjoying the high school level, and the kids are enjoying it and they're achieving success. But that you're like, all doors are open right now. Right now, I'm focused on coaching McKinney and doing a great job. And you know what? Who knows what happens in 5, 10, 15 years? But you're right in front of you. Your goal is we've got a track season coming up in 2023, and we're going to go what McKinney's going to do and put their best foot forward in everything that they do for track and field and cross country. I like that. I think that's a much more mature attitude, and we mature as we go along. And back in the days we were like, what, no, it's hell or high water, it's college. And it's like, man, I missed out on some great things. So I kind of like that maturity there. So okay, last question to wrap up today here, LaKeidra. On the internet right now, everybody is a buzz. You're pretty active on Twitter too. I love that, by the way, because that's all I do. I don't do anything. I've already tweeted 100 times during this interview. That's how active I am on Twitter. Only a slight exaggeration. But right now, we just got done with the NCAA championships, and we saw several what we were terming short sprinters, right? So I can only think of one. It's a terrible, I can only think of one example. But the young lady from Kentucky who was runner-up or third in the 100 and won the 200, and she smoked like a 48.5 split on the relay. And so there's a lot of buzz about short sprinters and the 4x4. And there seems to be an overwhelming sense of tide of thought that if you want to be great, a short sprinter great, then you better run the 4x, like almost like demand, like you cannot be a good short sprinter if you don't run the 4x4. And I'm more of a, it depends. Some maybe should and some maybe shouldn't, and I don't think it's a guarantee you have to. What are your thoughts as an experienced short sprinter coach? Is it like when you run your short sprint program, is it like, oh yeah, every one of you guys and gals, you will be on a 4x4 at some point in the season, and your goal should be to make the A team at the districts and state? Or are you more of like, yeah, maybe some short sprinters are good quarter milers and others aren't? What's your kind of census there on short sprinters running the 4x4?
So, I'm definitely a product of everybody is an option for the 4x4, okay. And from high school to summer track, even at A&M, Texas, I came in as a short sprinter and I was on the 4x4. Like, Coach Anderson actually threw me on the 4x4 at NCAA championships indoor. Yes. Yeah. He threw me on it indoor.
Oh.
At nationals. And he was like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, and he never took me off. Like, I was stuck, but
stuck.
I was stuck. I was stuck on the 4x4. I was like, oh man, so I was on there. But, my thinking is I think, logically, is every short sprinter going to be able to run the 400 and 4x4 well? No. My main concern is the mindset that comes with it. That's the thing for me. Like I tell all of my girls, you have to be ready. So they all understood they were going to run the 4x4 at least one time during the season, but it's just the mindset that comes with it because it is hard. It is a hard race. It's tough. Even our distance kids, honestly, our 4x4 at the end of the season on the girls' side, we had one young lady that was a converted short sprinter that ended up running the 400. My cross country girl that qualified for regionals, she was a 5K, 3,200 meter, 1,600 meter runner. She dropped down to the 800. She was on the 4x4, like, she ran it well. We had a 300 hurdler who was on there. And then we had one person who was a true 400 runner on there. That was it. And, it's just a mindset that comes with it. And I will tell you, those girls that ran on that 4x4, they were all over the place for our team because they were tough. My distance girl, Tara, I mean, whatever we threw her in, if we were like, hey, Tara, you're running the 3,200, you're running the mile and the 800 in the same meet. She was like, Coach, let's go. That it's just the mindset that comes with it. So I think whenever athletes have this fear of running it, that's when you don't get the best out of them as an athlete. I think it's just more so the mindset that comes with it. But yes, everybody is definitely an option. I had my pole vaulter, she ran on the 4x4 this season. Yeah, she ran it too. Yeah. But yeah, and I actually tweeted the other day too. It was just so powerful because Julian Alford, I think that's her name, that runs for UT, the one that won nationals in the 100. When they interviewed her and they were like, hey, you have to run the 100, the 4x4 later on tonight. What are your thoughts about that? And she was just like, anything for my team. Yeah. Like that type of person, that type of competitor athlete, those are just like the type of kids that you want to help your kids grow into, to where they have that mindset where it's like, hey, it's not just about me. Like, it's about what can I do for my team? Am I the best person to run the 4x4 for my team? Even if I'm not, am I willing to step in and help and wherever I'm needed for the team? So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it.
That must have been, because I knew it couldn't be just the Kentucky girl, Abby Steiner, her name.
Yeah.
Couldn't be just her. It's pronounced her name again. Was it Julian or Julian?
I think it's Julian Alfred.
Julian, yeah. That's the one as well. So you had the 100-meter champ that also ran on the 4x4, and then the interview. That's what it was. Yeah.
She run like 51 something,
fast. That's all I know any of those kids run anymore. That's just fast. It's quite amazing. Sure. Well, my counterpoint to that will be, and I love the 4x4, but until we start having the same argument that every quarter miler has to run the 4x1.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I say that.
I think they should 100%, but you never hear that argument. You never hear the quarter mile champion was also on the 4x1. Good job. Way to be a team rep. It's like, oh, you're just expected in some form. So that's my counter argument. And I would never make that argument on Twitter because, man, they're rabid fans of these short sprinters running the 4x4. I just stay in the back and just eat my popcorn and watch, and I'll have that argument.
Hey, I agree with you. Listen, look, I have stories for days. One at nationals one year, Coach Anderson pulled out Jessica Beard, threw her on anchor leg on the 4x1.
Yeah.
But that's why you want to train the all around athlete and all around somebody that can really literally plug in anywhere. USC, they ended up doing it. Their anchor leg on the men's side on the 4x1, he was their 400 runner. It's like, hey, you have to be able to be versatile, go everywhere.
Well, I think people like Julian Alfred, Abby Steiner, Mike Norman, Fred Curley are showing us that I don't know that there is a short sprinter, long sprinter anymore. I think it's, are you a sprinter?
Are you a sprinter?
So 4x1, 4x2, 4x4, 1, 2, 4. Let's get it and let's see what happens on the track.
Hey, Grant Holloway, hurdler who 400. I mean, him. Christian Taylor, jumper who could 400. I mean, are you an athlete basically at this point? You're an athlete.
And you might be talking about unicorns at that point though. So LaKeidra, exactly. Yeah. LaKeidra, so to get us out here today. Tell us again, because you are active on Twitter, where can they reach you on Twitter? And if you're on Twitter, you got to follow her. I mean, she's a fountain of just youth and smartness and really passion for track and field. That's why I like following her. What's your Twitter account there?
It's Coach K Stu TF. And that TF stands for track and field. I've been asked that before. I'm like, it's track and field.
Wait, what else did they think it was? That was my assumption.
Yes, I assumed that too. And they were like, they thought it meant something else, like the F. I'm like, no, it's track and field, guys. TF means track and field.
I would automatically question. Oh, I guess because you go Stu, so WTF. Maybe they're getting confused. I don't know. I would question their thought process there. Well, LaKeidra, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this for quite a long time. I love talking to coaches on all different levels. And while the majority of my time is spent on the college side of life, I need to continue to work on our high school coaches, because it's one thing you are coaching and doing an amazing job on the X's and O's as far as kids are getting better. You're also doing an amazing job as a leader and helping these young ladies at McKinney. They're going to become future doctors and lawyers and moms and business owners. And what you do, how you model leadership towards them is going to affect them in positive manners as they move forward. And the cool thing about math is they're going to go and affect other people. Them themselves are going to go affect other people. And that comes from you. That's a tree. Look what Vince Anderson has done amazing things. And now, because of how he affected you leadership wise and coaching wise, it's now affecting these young people at McKinney. So it's just an amazing, I'm from Alabama, so I don't like math at all, but this is the one time that I love math, that it actually just blows up and becomes bigger because of the positive impact that you make on a daily basis right there at McKinney, whether it's McKinney, A&M, or wherever the future takes you. I'm just so proud of your leadership. I'm so proud to kind of be on the sidelines and see it getting done, and now to know more about how that journey came to fruition in today.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. I'm just so thankful to be here. I appreciate you working with me. I know I was all over the place, but thank you so much. And I love what you do for our sport. Just the support that you give to coaches, athletes, track, and giving them a voice and avenue. So we appreciate you so much.
Well, I thank you for here. I appreciate hearing that. I'm a coach. I'm a coach of coaches at this point. No athlete needs to listen to me anymore. Trust me. So now it's all about coaches and how do we continue to make you better people? Because you are mothers and dads and business owners and everything as well, besides coaches. So I just want to continue to uplift and honor what you do as a person that just happens to have the word coach in front of that name. And so again, just so proud and just so thankful for your time today. It's the most important and valuable thing that you can give me. And it was well worth the chase to get you here on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.